The Grand Council of the Galactic Empire had not convened in full assembly for over 3,000 cycles. When it did, the chamber usually buzzed with pomp and ceremony, jeweled robes sweeping the floor, proud banners flaring above rows of dignitaries. Today, there was only panic, thinly veiled by layers of ritual politeness. Supreme Chancellor Votreg, a spindly amphibian with eyes that blinked separately, slammed his many-fingered hand on the crystalline lectern. The sound echoed, brittle and sharp. "This insurgency cannot be tolerated," he hissed, voice moist and ragged. "We must seek outside assistance." A ripple of gasps moved through the council hall, each species expressing horror in its own peculiar way. Plumes of smoke, ruffled feathers, or clicking mandibles. "Outside assistance?" croaked High Admiral Thrys, a creature resembling a bejeweled barn owl, his feathers bristling. "From whom? The Kthari? The Dominion of Shards? No, they would turn on us the moment our backs were turned." The Chancellor's bulbous eyes flickered with something dangerously close to desperation. "Not from our neighbors. From the primitive world." The room fell utterly silent. Even the sensory vines hanging from the rafters seemed to recoil. "You mean?" hissed Lord Relkan of the Obsidian Reach, a sentient cluster of metallic cubes. "The humans?" Votreg drew himself up, as much as a being made mostly of gelatin could. "Yes. Earth. Humanity." A low groan rolled through the room. Somewhere, a minor minister fainted. The humans were a conundrum that the Galactic Empire had long chosen to ignore. Barbaric, emotional, utterly lacking in proper decorum. And yet they had survived the worst their chaotic planet had thrown at them. They built machines that could annihilate cities and sang songs about it. They considered war a regrettable, yet occasionally recreational, exercise. They were simultaneously brilliant and reckless, dangerously unstable yet somehow effective. "They are unpredictable," intoned Grand Scholar Urtok, her crystalline form humming with barely restrained disgust. "They cannot be trusted to honor treaties. They have no caste structures, no respect for the sacred cycles." Votreg wobbled slightly, agitated. "Exactly. They are flexible, brutal. If we can harness that savagery, turn it upon our enemies, we can restore order." There were murmurs, more thoughtful this time. Perhaps, if the humans could be properly controlled, they would make excellent weapons. "And what price will they demand?" Thrys rasped, his golden eyes narrowing. Votreg's mouth quirked into a smile, or the best a being without lips could manage. "Baubles. Trinkets. They crave status symbols, technology, displays of power. We shall offer them shinies, and they will dance to our tune." A slow, grudging consensus began to form. The vote was held. By a slim margin, the council agreed. A delegation would be sent to Earth to solicit aid. Across the stars, the signal was prepared, carefully encoded, dressed in ritualistic humility, and then transmitted toward the small blue world orbiting an unremarkable sun. The delegation arrived in what they believed to be Earth's command center, a sprawling metropolis humans called New York City. They chose it based on intercepted transmissions. The abundance of illuminated advertisements suggested a hub of political power. Ambassador Clarissa Vaughn awaited them at the appointed meeting site, a structure humans referred to as the Plaza Hotel. She stood at the entrance with a practiced smile that suggested effortless charm. A small woman, no taller than the average adolescent of most species, she wore a sharply tailored navy suit and carried a clipboard in one hand like it was a weapon. Her hair was twisted into an elegant knot, and her eyes gleamed with a warmth that somehow felt dangerous. As the aliens disembarked, each carefully adorned in the most formal version of their native garb, Clarissa approached, hand outstretched. "Y'all must be the welcoming committee," she drawled sweetly. The aliens, momentarily paralyzed by the assault of both her strange syntax and her radiant cheer, fumbled through their prearranged greetings. Votreg stepped forward first, his translator device buzzing. "We come in mutual supplication and proposed benefit," he intoned. "We request alliance." Clarissa beamed. "Well, sugar, ain't that something? Come on in now, bless your hearts, You must be tuckered out from your trip. The interior of the hotel had been cleared for the event. Towering floral arrangements and circular tables laden with foods from various Earth cultures filled the grand ballroom. Soft classical music played overhead. Clarissa gestured to the tables. Y'all go on and help yourselves. We believe in southern hospitality around these parts. Confused but obedient, the delegation sampled the offerings. Some items, such as the so-called mac and cheese, caused a few of the delegates to writhe in unfamiliar pleasure. Midway through the meal, Clarissa clinked her glass with a butter knife, drawing their attention. Now, I understand y'all have yourselves a little OL problem, she said, voice syrupy smooth. Maybe we can help each other out. Vatreg stood again, his many limbs trembling slightly from either exertion or anxiety. A rebellion has fractured the Empire. Unknown forces wield tactics we do not comprehend. We have lost over 70 core systems. Assistance is urgently required. Clarissa nodded thoughtfully, scribbling something on her clipboard. 70 systems. My. Sounds like y'all could use a firm hand. She caught Vatreg's gaze and held it a heartbeat too long. There was a moment, a sliver of silence, where something shifted behind her eyes. A calculating sharpness, a glint of something ancient and predatory. It was gone in an instant, replaced by that same genial expression. And what exactly were y'all plannin' to offer in exchange? She asked, voice light as whipped cream. Vatreg straightened. We offer knowledge. Advancement. We will share technological wonders in exchange for kinetic support. Clarissa tilted her head. Kinetic support? He hesitated. Military force. Ground troops. Special operations. The human woman's smile widened just a touch too far. Well, ain't that a peach? From a side door, another human entered. She was taller than Clarissa, broad-shouldered, dressed in a bomber jacket covered in patches. Sunglasses hid her eyes. She gave a sharp nod and positioned herself at Clarissa's shoulder without speaking. Our team will have to discuss the particulars, Clarissa continued. Can't make decisions willy-nilly, you know. We've got protocols. Vatreg exchanged glances with his fellow delegates. This was not proceeding according to expectations. Humans were supposed to be impulsive, eager to leap at any opportunity for power. Clarissa's smile never wavered. Now, before we get too deep in the weeds, I'd like to introduce y'all to a few friends of mine. At her signal, the double doors swung open. Half a dozen human women entered, each distinct, each radiating a different kind of authority. A tall woman in a gray suit carried a briefcase that looked heavy enough to kill a man. A tanned, wiry figure wore camo pants and a faded, mom-strong t-shirt. A silver-haired woman with the sharp posture of a military officer walked alongside a teenager clutching a smartphone, already tapping furiously. Clarissa turned back to the stunned delegation. We call ourselves the Council. Vatreg's translator worded uncertainly, suggesting multiple possible meanings. Council, War Council, Judgment Tribunal. Each of these ladies is a specialist in her field, Clarissa said smoothly. Combat operations. Cultural influence. Economic restructuring. Social media warfare. She smiled at the teenager, who threw up a peace sign. The delegates were frozen, overwhelmed by the sheer casual confidence of the humans. Now, Clarissa said, laying her clipboard down with a decisive snap. Let's talk about terms. Vatreg found his voice first. You will assist us? Clarissa's laugh was a musical thing, sweet and terrifying. Oh, honey. We're gonna help you. We're gonna help you real good. Another of the human women, dark-skinned, wearing a t-shirt that said, I fix problems you didn't know you had, leaned in and whispered something into Clarissa's ear. Clarissa chuckled. We'll need access to your communication hubs, full diplomatic credentials, and a teensy bit of operational autonomy, she said. The delegation hesitated. Clarissa shrugged elegantly. Of course, if y'all aren't comfortable, we can always reconsider. I hear Mars is looking to secede. Maybe we'll find better partners there. The implied threat, casual, offhand, deadly, hung in the air like smoke. One by one, the delegates nodded. There was no choice. Clarissa smiled like a shark in Sunday pearls. "Excellent," she said. "We'll get started right quick. And bless your hearts for a skin, so nicely." As the humans dispersed to begin planning, Vatreg sank back into his hover chair, a deep gut-level unease crawling over his damp skin. He had the creeping sense that the Empire had not secured allies. They had opened the gates to something far, far worse. Clarissa watched the delegation with cool detachment as she sipped from a paper cup labeled, "Pumpkin Spice Latte." Her fingers drummed a silent rhythm on the clipboard. Behind her smile, the calculations continued. Probabilities. Infiltration strategies. Long-term projections. The Galactic Empire had sent a distress signal to Earth. Earth had answered. But not in the way anyone had expected. And deep down, Clarissa knew. By the time the Empire realized its mistake, it would be far too late. The council convened in an inconspicuous conference room within the plaza, its windows heavily curtained, its thick oak door guarded by two steely-eyed former Marines. Inside, the human women settled around a large round table, mugs of coffee and laptops at the ready. The air vibrated with suppressed energy, like the heavy stillness before a tornado touched down. Clarissa leaned back in her chair, balancing a styrofoam cup on two fingers. "Well, ladies, looks like we just got ourselves a live one." General Marion Hayes, the retired Marine whose short silver hair was combed in perfect military precision, snorted. "They don't know it yet, but they're already colonized." Across from her, Felicia Torres, the corporate lawyer with stilettos sharp enough to wound, smiled without showing her teeth. "Technically, it's a hostile acquisition. But yes, colonized." Clarissa's lips quirked upward. Bless their little three-chambered hearts. The teenager, Zoe Washington, barely looked up from her phone. "Their communication security is a joke. I got into their fleet command channels while they were still figuring out how to order room service." She pushed a folder across the table. "Passwords are literally admin 123 in 5 cases." Laughter rippled around the room. Only Marion's expression remained stern. "They might be idiots, but they're desperate," Marion said. "Desperate people can still be dangerous. We need to assume they'll realize their mistake eventually." Clarissa tapped a manicured nail against the tabletop. "Which is why we're moving fast." She turned her gaze to the alien delegation, now seated awkwardly at the far end of the room. Vatreg, High Admiral Thrys, Scholar Urtok, and several aides clustered together, whispering in low, anxious tones. Clarissa stood, smoothing her skirt with deliberate calm, and approached them with a brilliant smile. "Now, let's start talking turkey, shall we?" Vatreg shifted nervously, his translator implant clicking and whirring. "We have reviewed your preliminary terms. Certain clauses require clarification." Clarissa blinked innocently. "Oh, sugar, of course. We're all friends here." One of the aides, a thin, shivering insectoid, leaned forward, her mandibles clicking. "Clause 15. Total operational discretion without prior authorization? What does that mean?" Clarissa's voice remained honey-sweet. "It means y'all let us do what needs doing, no questions asked. Trust exercise." The delegation exchanged uneasy glances. Vatreg tried to rally himself. "Surely, standard operational oversight." Marion's voice cut in, low and commanding. "You asked for humans because you need results. Results don't happen when someone's second-guessing every move." Clarissa added, almost cheerfully, "It's just cleaner this way. You give us the ball, we run with it. Save everybody time and heartbreak." Thrys fluffed his feathers in a gesture of anxious protest. "And what assurance do we have that you will act in the Empire's best interest?" Clarissa tilted her head, her smile widening just enough to be unsettling. "Well, darlin', if we didn't, you wouldn't be around to complain about it." A beat of silence. Felicia's heels clicked as she stood and began setting folders before each delegate, her every movement sharp and efficient. "These are binding contracts under Earth law," she said crisply. "You'll find clauses regarding mutual non-aggression, economic trade incentives, technological exchanges, and cultural outreach programs. Scholar Urtok reached for the folder with trembling crystalline fingers. Cultural outreach? Clarissa nodded brightly. Absolutely. Y'all are gonna love reality TV. Builds character. Zoe suppressed a giggle behind her phone. The aliens huddled, speaking rapidly in a language their translators struggled to keep up with. Clarissa allowed them a moment, then clapped her hands once, sharply. Well, while y'all chew on that, we're gonna get started prepparin'. Without waiting for permission, the humans rose and began organizing. Within minutes, the plaza's grand ballroom transformed into a command center. Portable servers arrived by the truckload. Laptops and tablets sprouted like mushrooms. Charts bloomed across the walls, tactical maps of sectors the aliens thought were top secret. Clarissa watched with satisfaction as the delegation's confusion grew. The humans moved like a single organism, efficient, cheerful, deadly. Felicia directed teams setting up logistics. Marion reviewed potential strike targets, adjusting priorities with the kind of ruthless pragmatism only a Marine could conjure. Zoe hacked deeper into the Empire's internal networks, her fingers a blur on the touchscreen. It was, Clarissa thought with a secret smile, beautiful. Votreg approached hesitantly, his gelatinous form trembling. You move swiftly. Clarissa sipped her tea. Gotta strike while the iron's hot. He wrung his tentacles. We were under the impression that diplomatic proceedings would require more formalities. Clarissa gave a soft, patronizing laugh. Bless your heart. Y'all still think this is diplomacy. The delegates' growing realization was almost tangible. Every polite smile, every warm gesture, had camouflaged something cold, calculating, and inevitable. The humans weren't negotiating. They were staging a coup. By late evening, the final documents were signed. Clarissa didn't need to pressure them much. Desperation did most of the work. The council gathered again in the conference room, this time without the aliens. Clarissa flipped open her laptop, revealing a sprawling tactical map of the Empire's core worlds. First targets. Marion jabbed a finger at 3 flashing red icons. Key communication relays. Sever those and we control their news cycles. Felicia nodded. Simultaneously push cultural infiltration, broadcasts, memes, viral content. We overwhelm their narrative. Zoe grinned. Already cooking up some memes. Gonna seed them through their galnet. Within 72 hours, nobody's gonna know who's in charge of what. Clarissa tapped her cup thoughtfully. Economic destabilization? Felicia adjusted her glasses. We're partnering with local merchant guilds. Undercut prices, flood the markets with cheap human goods. Cripple their economies without firing a shot. Marion cracked her knuckles. If that fails, I've got Plan B. Clarissa smiled sweetly. Plan B being? Marion's grin was pure wolf. Kinetic encouragement. Clarissa clicked her tongue. Y'all Marines. Always so dramatic. They laughed, easy and relaxed. There was no hesitation among them, no moral quandaries. The Empire had called Earth for help, and Earth had answered in the only way it knew how. Strategically, relentlessly, and without mercy. By the second day, the humans had embedded themselves across multiple Empire sectors. Merchant groups accepted human technologies gladly, seduced by their efficiency and novelty. Civilian networks were bombarded with Earth-originated media, harmless at first, but increasingly saturated with human-centric values. Individualism, rebellion, the glorification of cunning over hierarchy. Within a week, the first revolts began. Small at first. Workers refusing orders. Soldiers questioning commands. Colonies broadcasting their independence. The aliens blamed each other. They blamed outside agitators. They never thought to blame the smiling humans sipping sweet tea in their gilded offices. Clarissa and her council met with Votreg and the others periodically, each session more surreal than the last. We are concerned, Urtok said at their next meeting, her crystal facets dimming. The unrest has spread beyond expectations. Clarissa blinked innocently. Oh, honey, change is always messy. Y'all didn't think we could just sprinkle some magic dust and fix everything overnight, did ya? High Admiral Thrys ruffled his feathers in agitation. The rebellions are coordinated. There must be an intelligence behind them. Felicia set down a stack of market reports. Statistically, decentralized movements emerge when power structures are stressed. Classic socio-economic phenomena. Vatreg looked increasingly haggard, his slime coating drying at the edges. The enemy we sought to defeat seems stronger now than before. Clarissa sipped her tea and smiled warmly. Sometimes things gotta break a little more before they get better. It was almost cruel, how easily they swallowed it. One evening, long after the official meetings had ended, Clarissa stood alone on the hotel balcony, overlooking the sprawling neon chaos of New York City. Marion joined her, a bottle of beer dangling from one hand. "You think they're catching on?" Marion asked quietly. Clarissa didn't turn. "Not yet. They're too used to thinkin' in straight lines. We think in spirals." Below, a distant police siren wailed. Human life moved heedless and messy in every direction. Marion took a pull from the bottle. "I almost feel bad for him." Clarissa's smile was thin and sharp. "Almost." By the third week, human advisors had been invited to oversee critical Empire operations. Under the guise of protecting supply lines, Earth's personnel commandeered starports, customs offices, and military outposts. Officially, they were allies. Unofficially, they were conquerors wearing the enemy's own uniform. When the first alien general finally voiced open dissent, he found himself abruptly facing a spontaneous civilian protest orchestrated by Earth's social media teams. Faced with overwhelming popular demand, he stepped down within hours. The Council's methods were subtle, efficient, and devastating. Clarissa chaired every strategy meeting with unflappable charm. The others executed her plans with military precision. They adapted, evolved, outmaneuvered every resistance. And all the while they smiled. The Empire's territories were pacified not by superior firepower, but by an ironclad understanding of psychology, propaganda, and the quiet ruthlessness of suburban mothers who knew how to win PDA elections by landslides. One night, Vatreg approached Clarissa privately, his tendrils twitching with frantic urgency. "There is unrest," he blurted. "Entire sectors declaring autonomy. Our fleets are paralyzed. Our economy is collapsing." Clarissa set down her glass and folded her hands neatly on the table. "And what would you like us to do about it, sugar?" Vatreg's gelatinous form quivered. "Restore order. This chaos must be reversed." Clarissa leaned forward slightly. Her voice dropped, still sweet but laced with iron. "Order ain't something you get back by wishin' real hard. Sometimes you gotta let a fire burn down the old forest before you can plant something new." Vatreg recoiled as if slapped. Clarissa softened her expression, reaching out to pat his damp arm with maternal concern. "But don't you worry. We'll take real good care of you. Y'all just sit tight and trust us." The Supreme Chancellor stumbled away, defeated. Clarissa watched him go, her smile serene. They hadn't just accepted humanity's help. They had surrendered everything. And the Council's work was only just beginning. The next phase would be less subtle. The next phase would be irreversible. Clarissa's gaze turned skyward, toward the stars twinkling beyond the smog. Soon, she thought. Soon they would understand. But by then, it wouldn't matter what they understood. It would already be too late. The Earthwomen's crusade did not begin with a declaration of war, or with the thunder of battlecruisers cresting over alien skies. It began with a charity bake sale. Across the Empire's core worlds, small human enclaves organized seemingly innocent gatherings, community picnics, soccer matches, craft fairs. Alien officials, desperate to project stability, welcomed these events. They broadcast images of humans distributing brownies and lemonade to wide-eyed alien children, declaring them symbols of interstellar friendship. In truth, they were staging grounds. Each event served as a node, a cultural insertion point, where human influence spread like a benign virus. Recipes turned into lessons on self-sufficiency. Games taught tactical thinking. Raffles and competitions trained logistics. In every smiling exchange, the seeds of rebellion were carefully, lovingly sown. Marion Hayes oversaw the Mom Brigades, elite units composed primarily of suburban volunteers and former military operatives disguised as friendly neighborhood organizers. Their weapons were charm, stubbornness, and an utter refusal to accept no as an answer. On the planet Velarith Prime, a Mom Brigade hosted a spring fling festival, complete with a pie-eating contest. By the end of the week, the local garrison commander had been voted out of office by a civilian council that didn't exist a month before. The new leadership requested continued human guidance in managing local affairs. Clarissa Vaughn received the news during a strategic breakfast meeting. She buttered her toast with precise, methodical strokes, never looking up from her laptop. "Well, girls," she drawled. "Looks like Velarith Prime just joined the Homeowners Association." Laughter rippled around the table. Felicia Torres tapped rapidly at her keyboard, sending updated reports to Earth Command. "Secondary dominoes falling," Felicia said. "Surrounding systems requesting humanitarian aid teams." Clarissa smiled, reaching for her tea. "Send 'em casseroles and legal contracts." Meanwhile, Zoe Washington's Cultural Warfare Unit flooded Empire media channels with carefully engineered content. Viral videos glamorized human resourcefulness, hinting at liberation, empowerment, freedom. Catchy slogans wormed their way into public consciousness. "Think for yourself. Build your own future. Why follow when you can lead?" What started as memes evolved into organized underground movements. Small rebellions flared in sectors once considered unshakably loyal. Workers refused to ship supplies. Students organized flash protests. Middle managers began questioning orders. The Empire struggled to respond, their hierarchical systems ill-equipped for the decentralized chaos humans bred so naturally. Clarissa observed it all with the satisfaction of a gardener watching her vines creep across a crumbling wall. On the battlefield, Marion's divisions initiated Phase 2. While diplomats held endless, fruitless conferences, the Mom Brigades deployed guerrilla tactics perfected in PDA meetings, community councils, and suburban bake-offs. They overwhelmed planetary governments with paperwork, flooded public offices with petitions, paralyzed administration through sheer bureaucratic persistence. When resistance emerged, Marion's teams shifted tactics. On the planet Hearthose, a particularly stubborn governor refused to implement Earth-sanction reforms. Within 72 hours his palace was surrounded, not by soldiers, but by tens of thousands of peaceful protesters wearing matching "Hugs, Not Tyranny" t-shirts. Facing an unarmed mob armed only with banners and sheer moral weight, the governor surrendered his office and was escorted out under polite but unyielding human supervision. Clarissa read the report with amusement. "Turns out," she murmured to Felicia over coffee, "nonviolent civil disobedience is still the nuclear option." Felicia nodded grimly. "Especially when it's weaponized." Still, not every world capitulated easily. On Krenos 4, the military prefect attempted to suppress human activities through force. Armed patrols arrested human organizers. Propaganda broadcasts denounced Earth's influence as insidious mind control. It was, of course, too late. The crackdown only validated human warnings of tyranny. Public outrage exploded. Entire divisions of the Empire's own military defected, pledging loyalty to the ideals of the Terran Accord, a document drafted overnight by Felicia's legal team. Clarissa dispatched Marion personally to oversee stabilization efforts. Upon arrival, Marion requested a meeting with the prefect under a flag of truce. She arrived wearing full combat fatigues adorned with Earth insignia, her silver hair gleaming under the harsh alien sun. The prefect, a towering reptilian creature in ornate armor, sneered down at her. "You have no authority here," he growled. Marion smiled, slow and deadly. "Honey," she said, "I don't need authority. I got momentum." Within days, Krenos IV's leadership collapsed. Human governance councils sprung up overnight. Clarissa made sure local traditions were preserved, at least superficially. The Empire's citizens never noticed the chains tightening, only that life got inexplicably better under human guidance. Vatreg summoned Clarissa for an emergency summit. She arrived in a simple sundress, carrying a wicker basket of homemade cornbread muffins. The council chamber buzzed with outrage. Reports of human interference filled the air, thick with accusations and counter-accusations. Clarissa waited patiently until the uproar faded. Then she rose, her voice cutting through the tension like a scalpel. "We're just helping folks stand on their own 2 feet," she said sweetly. "Isn't that what y'all wanted?" Vautreg's skin had gone a sickly gray. This is conquest disguised as assistance." Clarissa's smile remained unchanged. "Well, bless your heart for figuring it out eventually." Murmurs of shock rolled through the chamber. Clarissa stepped forward, her heels clicking softly. "The Empire's problem," she said, her voice still gentle, "ain't that folks are restless. It's that folks remember what it means to be free when you give 'em a taste of it." She laid the basket of muffins on the central dais with a soft thump. "Now we can fight about it," she said, her voice dropping slightly. "But I don't think y'all have enough friends left to make that a good idea." Vautreg slumped in his seat, defeated. The message was clear. The Empire was lost, and its fate had been sealed not by overwhelming firepower, but by 1,000 small, smiling cuts. The council regrouped privately that night. Clarissa poured herself a glass of sweet tea and perched on the windowsill, looking out over the glittering alien cityscape. "We're past the tipping point," Felicia said, scrolling through her datapad. "Resistance is fractured. Civilian loyalty polls are 90% in our favor." Zoe looked up from her phone. "Trending now. Earth makes empires better. Hashtags got 3 billion hits." Marion leaned back in her chair, a rare smile tugging at her mouth. "You realize what this means, don't you?" Clarissa nodded, sipping her tea. "It means," she said softly, "we ain't just winning. We're setting the rules now." It was not just about stabilizing the Empire anymore. It was about building something new atop its ruins. The Earthwomen's Crusade was not a conquest in the traditional sense. No banners of war were unfurled. No grand declarations were issued. Instead, humanity wrapped itself around the Empire like ivy around a crumbling monument, subtle, relentless, inevitable. Some pockets of resistance remained, of course. Hardline governors, remnant fleets, isolated warlords clinging to the old ways. Clarissa convened a private war council to address them. "We can't allow outliers to fester," Marion said bluntly. "They'll just spark bigger fires later." Felicia agreed. "Legitimacy depends on complete integration. No loose ends." Clarissa studied the map, tracing paths with one perfectly manicured nail. "Selective encouragement, then," she said. Phase 3 began quietly. Targeted aid packages. Advisors, dispatched to help manage difficult regions. Strategic marriages between influential human families and alien dynasties, binding loyalty through blood and contracts alike. Where influence failed, Marion's strike teams intervened. Surgically, invisibly, ruthlessly. Within 6 months, organized resistance collapsed entirely. By the time Vautreg held his final public address, the transformation was complete. He stood before the gathered media, flanked by Clarissa and her council, sweat visibly rolling down his gelatinous hide. "We welcome our Terran partners," he croaked, "as friends and custodians of peace." Clarissa smiled and gave a gracious little wave for the cameras. Backstage, Marion leaned in and murmured, "Friends and custodians, my ass." Clarissa chuckled without moving her lips. Public perception management remained key. Humans framed their dominance as stewardship, not conquest. They helped rebuild schools, hospitals, and infrastructure, gathering gratitude like farmers gathering wheat. The average citizen never saw the iron fist beneath the velvet glove. If you asked the ordinary worker on a backwater world what changed under human rule, they'd shrug and say things were better now. Cleaner. Safer. More opportunities for advancement. More choices. Freedom, they believed, had returned. They were wrong, of course. True freedom had been replaced by something more efficient, organized, sanitized, benevolent control. And humanity, in its quiet, smiling way, ruled more absolutely than any emperor ever had. Clarissa stood in her office atop the Imperial Palace's rebuilt spire, watching construction drones buzz like bees across the skyline. Marion joined her, arms crossed, surveying the view. "Never thought I'd see the day," Marion said softly. Clarissa smiled, but it was a different smile now. Quieter, heavier. "It was never about seeing it," she said. "It was about building it." Felicia entered, holding a slim portfolio. "Expansion plans ready," she announced. "Neighboring sectors requesting voluntary integration." Zoe leaned against the doorway, smirking. "Gotta love peer pressure." Clarissa accepted the portfolio, flipping through it with deft fingers. She paused on the last page. A star chart of untouched territories, glittering possibilities stretching into infinity. She tapped one star with her nail. "Next," she said. The council nodded in unison. The Earthwomen's crusade would not end with the Galactic Empire. It was only just beginning. And in the deep endless dark between stars, a new empire was rising. Not with fire and blood, but with smiles, sweet tea, and an iron will wrapped in silk. Humanity had found its destiny. And it was written not in peace treaties, but in the unbreakable, unstoppable spread of its own indomitable spirit. Clarissa raised her tea in a silent toast to the stars. "We're comin' for y'all," she whispered. And nothing in the galaxy could stop them. The Imperial Palace, once the pride of 1,000 worlds, shimmered under the harsh light of midday. Its great spires and golden domes, once towering symbols of unity, now cast long, skeletal shadows over the Capitol Plaza. Banners bearing the ancient sigils of the Empire still flapped in the breeze, but they were faded, edges frayed, their glory long surrendered to time, and more recently, to Earth's velvet conquest. Clarissa Vaughn walked the marbled halls with deliberate grace, heels tapping a steady rhythm of inevitability. Around her, human aides and advisors bustled purposefully, inserting themselves into every bureaucratic vein of the Empire's once mighty body. With a clipboard tucked under one arm and a half-empty teacup balanced in her free hand, Clarissa exuded the effortless authority of someone who had never doubted, not for one second, that this day would come. Supreme Chancellor Votreg awaited her in the Hall of Petitioners, his gelatinous mass sagging more than usual. Behind him, an honor guard of Imperial soldiers stood stiffly at attention, their armor polished but their expressions hollow. A few flicked glances toward Clarissa's human entourage, uncertainty shadowing their features. Clarissa smiled brightly as she approached. "Afternoon, Your Excellency. You're lookin' right spry today." Votreg quivered. His translator rendered a phrase in a tone so flat it bordered on despair. "We must discuss the new treaty terms you have proposed." Clarissa gave a faux apologetic wince and tapped her clipboard. "Terms is such a strong word. Think of it more like updated guidelines." Behind her, Marion Hayes loomed silently, arms folded, the very picture of contained violence. Felicia Torres tapped away on her tablet, cross-referencing legal frameworks so complicated even the Empire's best scholars couldn't untangle them. Zoe Washington leaned against a marble column, scrolling through live social feeds, occasionally snickering at trending posts that mocked the Empire's leaders with merciless creativity. The delegation moved into the Grand Conference Chamber, a cavernous space designed to humble visitors with its sheer size and grandeur. Clarissa strolled to the center, her team fanning out behind her like a pack of wolves politely attending a tea party. Votreg struggled to maintain composure. "The Council believes Earth's interventions have exceeded the agreed-upon boundaries." Clarissa set down her clipboard with a decisive click. "Oh, sugar. Boundaries are just invitations for negotiation." A ripple of uneasy murmuring stirred among the Imperial advisors. "You have replaced our planetary governors," Votreg accused, voice trembling. "You control our media networks. Our fleets take orders from your liaison officers. This is no alliance. It is occupation." Clarissa's expression softened, the way a mother might look at a toddler throwing a tantrum. "Now, darlin', that's just ugly talk. We're here to help y'all flourish. We're teaching y'all how to stand on your own 2 feet. Votreg's eyes bulged. "You have disarmed our military." Marion stepped forward, voice low and dangerous. "Correction. We streamlined your military, took out inefficiencies, trimmed the deadwood. Clarissa chuckled, light and musical. Efficiency's the name of the game, honey. Can't have y'all wastin' resources on silly ol internal conflicts, now can we? Vautreg's gelatinous form rippled with visible rage. You have enslaved the Empire. Clarissa's smile never wavered. No, sugar. We set y'all free. Free from fear. Free from chaos. Free from bad decisions. She leaned in slightly, voice dropping to a silken whisper. Freedom's a mighty tricky thing. Sometimes folks don't even know what to do with it till someone kind shows them how. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, from behind Vautreg, another figure emerged. The Imperial High Marshal, a being of sleek obsidian armor and reptilian grace. Unlike the others, he did not fidget. His cold yellow eyes locked onto Clarissa with calculated hatred. We have tolerated your deceit long enough, the High Marshal said. Today, we reclaim our sovereignty. Clarissa's eyebrows lifted, amused. Oh honey, y'all still think you got cards to play? With a sharp gesture, the High Marshal barked an order. The Imperial soldiers raised their weapons. For a fraction of a second, the world teetered on a knife's edge. Then Marion moved. It was not a drawn-out battle. It was not a heroic last stand. It was an execution, cold and efficient. Marion disarmed the nearest soldier with a flick of her wrist, sending his weapon spinning into Zoe's waiting hands. Felicia triggered a failsafe embedded in the conference hall's security systems, locking all doors and disabling non-human weapons. The soldiers hesitated, caught between training and terror. Some dropped their rifles and sank to their knees, others fled outright. The High Marshal roared in fury and lunged at Clarissa. He never reached her. Marion intercepted him mid-charge, driving her knee into his gut with bone-cracking force. As he stumbled, Felicia tripped him with surgical precision. He collapsed in a heap, gasping. Clarissa stepped calmly over to the fallen marshal, and crouched down so they were eye-level. Now listen close, sugar, she said, voice low and dangerous. Y'all had your chance to play nice. Y'all chose poorly. The marshal snarled something in a guttural dialect. Clarissa's translator rendered it simply. Monsters. She smiled sweetly. Takes one to know one, darlin'. Marion zip-tied the marshal's wrists while Zoe broadcast the entire confrontation live across the Empire's public channels. Clarissa rose gracefully and faced the cameras. Friends, neighbors, citizens of the galaxy, she said warmly. Today marks a new chapter in our shared history. A chapter of unity, prosperity, opportunity. Behind her, human teams moved swiftly to secure the chamber, replacing Imperial banners with streamlined insignias bearing a simple, bold symbol, a rising sun over a stylized earth. Clarissa continued, her voice steady, practiced, magnetic. For too long, the Empire has clung to outdated notions of power. Hierarchy. Fear. But fear is a poor foundation for a house meant to last. We offer y'all something better. A future built on partnership. On progress. On family. The word family resonated deeply, cutting through centuries of propaganda. Across 1,000 worlds, citizens watched and listened. Many wept. Some cheered. A few raged, but quietly, impotently. Clarissa let the moment breathe, then delivered the final blow with velvet precision. As of this moment, by unanimous request of the Transitional Council, Earth accepts the solemn duty of stewardship over the territories formerly known as the Galactic Empire. We pledge to serve with honor, with compassion, and with unwavering commitment to every citizen's right to a better tomorrow. The broadcast ended with Clarissa's radiant smile frozen on screens from Core World to Fringe Outpost. In the silence that followed, Vautreg collapsed into his throne, utterly broken. Clarissa approached him one last time. You did good, sugar, she murmured kindly.